I believe major Raiders news is coming soon, and I want Raider Nation to mentally prepare themselves for a Maxx Crosby trade. And when Max ends up getting dealt, I want y'all to hit that subscribe button because I will be live here on this show. Also, though, we're going to break down some other NFL news that ended up going down today, a big-time trade. That's all coming up right now here on the Raiders Report. Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz, your host of the Raiders Report. And before we get in to all the information around Maxx Crosby, I do want to talk about some other Raiders news that I am preparing to happen before NFL free agency gets underway. The first thing I want to discuss here is Geno Smith, and I believe full-heartedly that the Las Vegas Raiders will be moving on from their quarterback, and I'm going to give this one 4 just win, babies, that the Raiders will be cutting him. There have been some rumors, there have been some speculations about teams potentially picking up the phone and giving Geno Smith a call. There's also been some speculation out there that Clint Kubiak and the staff could potentially keep Geno, but we got to be able to face the facts. It also takes 2 to tango. Geno has wanted out of this organization for months. The Raiders know that they're still going to be able to save some money at $8 million, and there's a bunch of other NFL teams out there that also understand and know that Geno is not happy in his current situation with the Raiders, right? Like, if you know that somebody wants out, why would you trade for that player when you know he's going to be able to hit the open market? Now, what's really important about this is Geno does make an extra $8.5 million if he's on the roster March 13th. It's the 3rd day of the new league year. So for this organization, you got to be able to figure out a way to move on from Geno. I am confident. I am giving it 4 just win, babies, and I do fully believe that the Raiders will be moving on from Geno Smith, and I believe that we're going to be getting that notification before free agency gets going. However, though, I did have a source at the Combine that told me that the Vikings could be an interesting team to keep an eye out on in making a deal for Geno Smith. I talked to our Vikings host here at Chat Sports, and he was kind of picking my brain about it a little bit. What's also interesting, and the reason why I like rumors, the reason why I'm always going to follow rumors, is because the source that I talked to at the Combine mentioned the Minnesota Vikings. Y'all remember when I was talking at the Combine and I talked to Jeremy Fowler, and Fowler told me the number 1 team that's going to make a deal for Maxx Crosby was the Chicago Bears. Now you're hearing all things about the Bears. My point is rumors are important because had a source tell me, watch out for Minnesota for Geno, then also in the article that Matthew Berry put out this week, mentioned that he's heard that the Minnesota Vikings also have some interest in Geno Smith. So when I was at the Combine, I talked to this person. I'm not going to reveal who they were, but they essentially told me that they thought that the deal that would end up going down to get Geno to Minnesota could look something like this. So the Raiders, you get a 7th-round pick. Minnesota gets Geno Smith, and you're going to send them a 5th. But this also could be a 4th-round pick, and some of you might be going like, man, why would the Raiders do that? The reason why the Raiders would entertain a trade like this is because Minnesota then is essentially saving the silver and black. I think it's like $17.5 million because if he's cut, we save $8 million. So I guess the math is $18 million. If we cut him, we save 8. Mark Davis eats 18.5. If you trade him, you save that entire $26 million. So if a trade ends up going down, I don't think people should expect the Raiders to get a 7th-round pick and not send anything else. I think the bigger point I'm trying to make here is if a trade goes down, the Raiders, I believe, would send away draft picks to get extra money to be able to spend in NFL free agency. And coming off the year that Geno did, I don't know how interested the Vikings are because, I saw a report earlier today that apparently teams are calling about Jarrett Stidham. Do I really think that teams are interested in Stidham? No. I expect the Broncos to be putting out these trades because at the end of the day, the Broncos want a team that makes a deal for Jarrett Stidham. I, as a Raiders fan, want a team to swoop in and trade for Geno Smith because I know I'm not the only one because then we save $26 million. I mean, imagine we already have a lot of money in salary cap. Imagine you add another $26 million to that salary cap. Lots and lots of moves going to end up going down. Now, if you guys don't know, I'm probably going to be live for 20-plus hours next week. I'm going to be live on Monday, if I had to guess, probably 7 to 8 hours. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This says 20-plus hours. That's a guarantee. We might reach 30. The only way we reach 40 hours, I think, is if some big trades end up happening. some big signings end up going down. But if you're looking for the best Raiders free agency coverage on planet Earth, hit that subscribe button. Let's go to some more Raiders news that I'm waiting for. The Silver and Black to re-sign Eric Stokes. He was by far the best corner for this organization last season. Signed him to a one-year, $4 million deal, and really, dude, stepped up in the biggest situations because he did, man. He needed to step up. He needed to be healthy, and he was healthy. In terms of what do I think the chances are for the Raiders to re-sign Stokes, I'm going to give this one to just win, babies, and I do think that it's a coin flip. But at the end of the day, I know the Raiders and Stokes do have mutual interest. I know that there's other teams that are interested, but if I'm Stokes and if I'm the Raiders, I'm trying to offer him a solid deal. But Spytek told me flat out at the Combine that he would like to bring back Stokes. And I think it's pretty well known that Stokes also has a respect level for the Raiders for kind of taking a little bit of a chance on him. What it's really going to come down to, like, I think if the Raiders offered Eric a deal that was like 3 years, probably about $8 million, $24 million in total, he would take that deal. Do I think that he's going to get a bigger deal on the open market? I really don't 100% know, but I do know that Stokes wants to be a Raider. He would like to be a Raider, but at the end of the day, he's going to chase the biggest payday. And if he gets a bigger payday elsewhere, maybe he goes to that organization. But I look at Eric Stokes very similar to the way that I look at a guy like Trevon Merrick last year. Wanted them to be a part of this team. But if somebody's willing to overpay, just like Green Bay did with Nate Hobbs, then he'll probably go chase that bag, and you can't blame him for doing it. But I do know that there is some mutual interest in Stokes and with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, let's go to the reason why you probably clicked on this video, and I have been kind of like holding back making some Maxx Crosby trade videos because I'm a fan just like all of y'all. There's so many rumors going on right now that I'm like, I don't want to talk about anything that I feel like I'm just regurgitating. I want to be extremely clear here. The reason why I'm talking about Maxx Crosby today is because I had a source reach out to me on Monday night. Maybe you guys saw the video that I dropped on Monday. This is what it was. New Crosby rumors. They were from Fowler, and I said on that video that I think that there is a 25% chance that Maxx Crosby is dealt. I had a source reach out to me on Monday night. I talked to somebody yesterday. Again, I'm not 100% healthy, so I wasn't on my phone the way that I usually am. Spoke to a source this morning, and I want to be extremely, extremely, extremely clear. I went from being one just win, baby, 25% chance that the Raiders end up moving on from Max. I'm now going to give this 3 just win, babies, and I'm not going to give it 4 because it's just one of those stories that in my heart of hearts, I feel like I can't give it 4 just win, babies. But if you were to ask me a percentage of what do I think Maxx Crosby getting dealt is, it's probably going to be in that 80% realm right now because I was told something Monday night that I was asked not to share, and I mentioned this a few times on yesterday's live show that, you know, at the end of the day, man, I got an affinity. I've always respected Maxx Crosby, but when people reach out to you and they ask you not to share things, you kind of have to walk that tightrope as the Raiders Report host because, again, I love Raider Nation. I rock with Raider Nation. I do this show not to say that I'm not an insider. I do get sources from time to time, but I like to share information with fans that I also find interesting. So believe me when I tell you, it pains me that I can't tell you the exact quote. I can't tell you exactly what I was told on Monday, but the reason why it's important is because I want Raider fans to start mentally preparing themselves for Maxx Crosby to be dealt. Because what I do know is this, Max does have a favorite trade destination. That team, based on what I hear, isn't willing to offer some of the top draft capital that the Raiders are looking for, right? We've heard Micah Parsons level type of deal. That team's not going to offer you Micah, and apparently there's multiple trades right now out there for Max, and this team has not offered as much as what some other teams have offered. What I also know is Max is okay playing for the Las Vegas Raiders. He is. If he had to play for the Raiders this season, he's okay with it. But I also was told that he would be excited to play elsewhere, and based on the information that I was given, there's one team in particular that Max would really like to play for. So the way that I want y'all Raider fans to think about this, because this is the way that it was kind of presented to me, imagine you're in a relationship, and you're in a great relationship. Imagine if your significant other said, I like being with you, but if I had the opportunity to be with them, I would rather be with them. And that's kind of the state of where the Raiders are at right now. I'll say this, if the top team that Max wanted to go to was willing to offer a Micah Parsons type deal, Maxx Crosby would be traded. Bottom line, point blank, and I want to be very clear on that. And I know that Fowler reported yesterday that he didn't think Maxx Crosby wanted to be dealt, but I'm hearing a lot of other things that Max's team behind closed doors is doing everything in their power to make sure that 98 is playing somewhere else besides Las Vegas in 2026. So Breer said this yesterday. I'd lean toward a Maxx Crosby trade happening, and maybe this week. Y'all know that I'm a big where there's smoke, there's fire guy. And for Breer to be throwing out that type of information and him, thinking that it's going to end up going down this week, I think that that's very important. Also, I spoke with Diana Russini at the NFL Combine, and she made it pretty clear to me that, everything that she's hearing, Maxx wants to be dealt. So Breer, it's all the NFL media guys, and those are the guys that are going to talk to Maxx Crosby's agents. Where agents for Maxx are probably telling the Raiders, a lot of the things that they want to hear. But I want to show you what Diana Russini reported this morning. Crosby hasn't made a stink publicly. I want you to read that line again. Crosby hasn't made a stink publicly, partly because of his deep affection for the Raiders fan base, but it's clear that he has exhausted all efforts in Vegas. This next line is ridiculous, Diana. He's had a new boss every 12 seconds with one winning season out of the 7 to show for it. I do know that Maxx is extremely frustrated, and I do know that there are certain people in that organization, new people in that organization, Alex Guerrero being a big one, that Maxx just doesn't F with. He doesn't like the guy very much, didn't like how the end of the season ended up going down. But for Diana to say, so where do things stand right now with Maxx Crosby? Based on several conversations with league sources, the Raiders have not moved off of their asking price of 2 first-round picks. From what I know, there are 2 teams right now in the NFL that have offered the Raiders 2 first-round picks. Several teams are interested, but decision makers are getting mixed signals from the Raiders in regards to their genuine interest in dealing the star. Clint Kubiak said they didn't want to deal him. John Spytek said they didn't want to deal him. And if a Raiders trade ends up going down, it's because of Maxx Crosby asking to get out. But Diana is very clear, and she also said, hey, he doesn't want to make a stink about it. I know how much Maxx loves Raider Nation. I know how much Maxx loves the Raiders. I know that he is a Raider at heart, and I do really think that he's always going to be a Raider at heart. But there is also that level of frustration where he's looking at himself at 29 years old. He's had a lot of knee injuries, and he doesn't know, how much longer he has. He wants to win a Super Bowl. He wants to be, playing in competitive playoff games. And the teams that he's looking at to go to are teams that I think a lot of y'all would say, yeah, that's a playoff team. That's a playoff team. That's a playoff team. Probably a better chance than what the Raiders are going to be going forward. But also, I know Raider Nation's got a lot of good sources. And I reached out to OB. He's been pretty spot on this entire offseason. And from covering the Raiders as long as I have since 2018, I honestly think fans have done a better job breaking stories than a lot of the beat reporters that end up covering this team. But Obi, who's been, again, a very good source for Raider Nation, and this wasn't the first time he put this out there. This wasn't the second time he put this out there. This is the third time that he has said very clearly that looks like Maxx Crosby is going to be traded. And if you know the hashtag, if you know, you know. I do believe in what Obi is saying just based on what I have heard over the past 48 hours. I do want to be clear, though, the Commitment to Excellence dinner, that was last week. And if you listen to Maxx, I had a few people send me some clips of Maxx at that dinner. Again, he just wanted Raider Nation to know how much, he appreciates the fan base. And I think if he didn't have such a strong connection with the fan base, you would be hearing a lot more of these trade rumors, but he's trying to keep it, behind closed doors. He doesn't want people to know that, not that he's not, again, he doesn't, he's I got to be traded. That's not what I understand. But what I do understand is he's okay playing for the Raiders, but would be excited about the opportunity to play elsewhere, which tells me kind of everything that I need to know. That right now it sounds like the Raiders are second fiddle, and there's another team out there that he's looking at. So one of the teams that I'm going to show you is one of the top destinations that Maxx Crosby wants to play for. I'm not allowed to tell you which team he's eyeballing, but what I do know is this. 2 of the teams that are up here have offered 2 first-round picks for Maxx Crosby. That I want to be very clear. And one of these teams is the top team that Maxx wishes to play for in the year of 2026. I have said before that the Bears, the Cowboys, the Rams, I personally have thought have been some of the top teams out there. I wanted to throw in the Lions just based off of something that I heard earlier today. So I would say right now, the top 4 teams to make a deal for Max, and I'm going to tell you all this right now. The video you're going to get tomorrow from me is going to feature a Bears trade. It's going to feature a Cowboys trade. It's going to feature a Lions trade. It's going to feature a Rams trade. Like, it's going to feature what I think all these teams could potentially be willing to offer for our star pass rusher. But, like, I am just telling y'all, start mentally preparing yourself. Me and my team here, we've already got everything ready for a live show. We got everything ready to rock and roll because I'm at the point where I do really feel in my heart of hearts that Maxx Crosby will ultimately be dealt. And that's just the way that it goes. So let me know down below. Do you think Maxx Crosby will be traded? Give me a yes. Give me a no. The part of me where, again, like I told myself when I did this show, I'm not going to wear my emotions too much on my sleeve because at the end of the day, good organizations, they think with their head. They don't think with their heart. But I know Raider Nation, when they hear Maxx Crosby's name, you do. You think with your heart because that guy is showing up and showing out for this organization every single day. So let me know down below. Yes or no, do you think Max will be traded? I do. I believe Maxx Crosby wants to play elsewhere. I don't think that he wants to admit it because he knows that he's going to get some repercussions. I also know that Max, loves his house, loves his home in Las Vegas. He's really looking for his life after football as well, and I think that that's going to be a big part in that Las Vegas scene because he wants to be a UFC. Not that he wants to be a UFC fighter, but I have been told that he does actually have some aspirations of fighting in the UFC. And he's very close to Dana White. He's very close to that whole Las Vegas scene out there. He also knows how much money he would be able to make as a potential part-time owner of the Raiders down the road because of him and his connection with Mark Davis. But, man, at the end of the day, you can't put anybody above the shield. And if the Raiders get the proper compensation for Maxx Crosby, I want fans to just think about this, okay? And I want fans to think about this. If the Raiders trade Max, you save $30 million. Imagine if I told you $30 million and let's just say 3 really good draft picks, because I don't know if you're going to get 2 firsts, right? But let's just say you get $30 million extra dollars. Let's say it's a first-round pick. Let's say 2 first-round picks and then a starting caliber player. Would you take $30 million, 2 extra draft picks, and another starting caliber player over Maxx Crosby this offseason? I can understand why this organization would potentially want to do that from a rebuild standpoint, but my mind tells me that that trade does make a lot of sense for this organization. My heart tells me I wish Max could be a part of this rebuild as well, because I want Max to be a part of this winning organization moving forward. And I get it. We haven't done a lot of winning. So what is extremely important, and this is just my opinion. I know what Breer reported. I know what's been floated out there. But I believe if a Maxx Crosby trade ends up going down, I do think it's going to happen soon. And the only reason why I would say it's going to happen soon is because if I'm John Spytek, Tom Brady, and I'm all the Clint Kubiak, and I'm the important decision makers inside of that Raiders room, I want to know, do I have that extra $30 million to work with? Do I have that extra draft capital? Do I have Maxx Crosby to be able to build around going into the biggest offseason of the Raiders' history? If I'm a first-time head coach, I want to know all those things. In the same breath, if I'm the team making the deal for Maxx Crosby, I want to know, do I have that star edge rusher? Am I going to have to give away those picks? So you have to plan accordingly. When you think about the amount of money, when you think about the amount of draft capital, and you think about the star player that Max is, teams want to prioritize that and plan accordingly going into NFL free agency. So as I always say, where there's smoke, there's fire, and I do believe that all this Maxx Crosby smoke will ultimately lead to a Maxx Crosby trade. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure those notifications are turned on because I will be live when this news ends up going down. Coming up next here on the show, some big, and I mean big, NFL news that ended up going down today. A huge trade. I'm also going to talk about a free agent that I talked about tons, and I mean tons, last offseason. But before I do, really, really excited that the Chat Sports team has been able to cook up some of these Raiders Report hats. I know I get asked all the time, Mitch, can I get a Raiders Report hat? And for the first year that we had them, we did special deals around them. Well, now you can get your very own Raiders Report hat for less. I think it's $24.99 on the website. You go to chatsports.com/RR shop. Even if even if you don't want to buy a hat, I want you to go check out this hat because I don't know how we did it. I don't know if it's AI Jeremy. I don't know who our team here did it. You got to see Jeremy as a model. It's absolutely positively unbelievable. So at the end of the day, if you go to that link, you're going to see Raiders Report shirts. You're going to see Raiders Report hoodies. You're going to see Mendoza shirts. You're going to see all the Raiders Report gear that I have. If you're a proud member of the family that we have here on this YouTube show, I hope that you get this not only in support of me, right, but I hope that you get this gear in support of all of y'all, because if you see another Raider fan rocking a Raiders Report hat, rocking a Raiders Report shirt, rocking anything Raiders Report, I hope you go up and you introduce yourself, because being at the events that I have in person, one of the most humbling things is just seeing people interact with each other, and just shows that we are so much more than a YouTube channel. We're building an unbelievable community. And I hope that that community shows up when Max is ultimately dealt. Let's go to some of the NFL news that happened today. Jeremy Fowler, the Chargers plan to release guard Mecki Becton in the coming days. Per source, the move saves Los Angeles $9.7. I know Mecki Becton last season was probably like one of the worst starting offensive guards in the NFL. And I loved Mecki in that final year that he had with Philadelphia. Now maybe, Jeff Stoutland, one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. He did a lot of magic for Philadelphia. Maybe that's why Mecki Becton was such an intriguing pick. But coming off the year that Becton did, I think that this could be a really interesting buy low option for the silver and black, because I think if you put somebody who's as big as Mecki next to a JPJ, maybe even get him next to a Tyler Linderbaum, could you get the most out of him? Like, if you put Mecki at left guard between Colton Miller and, let's say, Tyler Linderbaum, and then you got JPJ at right guard, I do think that that's actually a very, very interesting mix all around. I actually didn't put this in the show, but I did have a source tell me this morning that Dylan Parham could actually be a player that the Raiders decide to bring back just because they think that he's actually a pretty good fit in the Clint Kubiak offense. I just saw his picture, so I literally just thought of it. Other NFL news that ended up going down today, the Chiefs and Rams ended up pulling off an unbelievable blockbuster deal. Do we have that trade graphic? If we don't, it's all good. So what ended up happening here is the Kansas City Chiefs, they traded away Trent McDuffie, their cornerback, to the Los Angeles Rams in exchange for pick 29, so that's a first-round pick this season, a fifth-round pick, a sixth-round pick this season, and then also a third-round pick in 2027. The reason why that I find that trade very interesting, one, it tells me that the Rams are in win-now mode. And I know that the Rams are one of those teams that are very interested in Maxx Crosby. And I said this yesterday on the show when I was live, like, does anybody else think it's a little bit, fishy that Maxx, when he went to L.A., met with Caleb Williams of the Chicago Bears, a team very interested in Maxx, and then also met with not only Jared Verse, but also met with Sarah Safari, I believe is her name, who's dating Puka Nacua. So, like, maybe the Rams are going to go, you know what, we're going all in. F the first-round picks. We're going to go out and we're going to try to maybe get a guy like Maxx Crosby in a big-time deal. On the other end of it, though, for the Chiefs, like, I think that this is a winning deal for both sides. I actually hate this deal as a Raiders fan because that means Kansas City gets 2 first-round picks this season. You get an extra fifth and a sixth, and you get a third in 2027. That does scare me. I'm not going to lie to you, because I think that helps out Kansas City go out and potentially replace that corner early. I think it also helps them potentially get a Jeremiah Love early on and then potentially get an offensive lineman later on at pick 29. But that's a big, big-time deal. And sometimes when big-time deals happen, other dominoes do ultimately end up starting to fall. So before I hop on out of here today, again, make sure you're subscribed. Please turn on those notifications, especially this time of the year. I know I always say, turn on your noties. Be a part of the Noti gang. The most important time of the year to make sure your notifications are on and make sure they're clicked all is this time. Because when the Raiders do a trade, I'm going to go live. When the Raiders sign a big-time free agent, I'm going to go live. Even if it's Saturday, even if it's Sunday, this is the craziest, most wild time of the year for me personally. So make sure you guys are ready. I know I've been hydrating. I know I'm trying to get my body right for what I believe to be the next craziest week that I have ever covered on the Raiders Report.